The day after the big interview with the awesome threesome.
Journalists.
Linus Kaikai.
Pamoja na Joe Ageo.
And of course, Eric Latif.
Your design.
Although Linus has been rebaptized.
To Linus. Let me tell you, Linus.
Listen to me, Linus.
I said a 12-year-old is still alive.
Eesh.
Yo.
That was rough.
Yo.
Joining us live in the studios to talk about this is Advocate of the High Court.
Your design.
Tom Kopere.
Toma.
Thank you.
Welcome, looking pretty dashy.
Dapper.
Dapper in the John Joe suit.
Suits, pinstripes.
Thank you.
What are your conclusions after 2 weeks of protest? What are your thoughts?
First, I want to say that this was coming. It was a pot boiling and about to burst. And if anybody who was in the government should have seen this, because it started immediately when they brought in the finance bill and tried to bring in what, quote-unquote, public participation. And the arrogance with which it was brought was, what's wrong? Because here are people who are supposed to be the chair of the, you remember the chair of the Finance Budget Committee.
Yeah.
At one point even told, if you think taxes are high in Kenya, go to some other country and do your manufacturing, then you can export
to Kenya.
To Kenya. And that was the height of arrogance. And I think that was wrong. They just started on a wrong footing. But this thing has been coming since last year. Even the 2023-2024 Finance Act was not good at all. Because initially when the government, this Kenya Kwanza government came into power, they said we are going to do away with subsidies.
Yeah.
We are going to bring in so many things. What were the substitutes? We are going to bring down the cost of living. But what happened? The cost of living went up. If you thought the subsidies were taking a lot of money, where did that money go to? Obviously, it ought to have gone somewhere. And there was no evidence of where that money went to. So ideally, they removed it and maybe put it in some people's pockets. That is basically what the Kenyans were seeing. The cost of living just started skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And they were every time coming on TV, on interviews, saying, we are doing our best, we are doing this. But what they were doing was not being seen or felt by anybody. I remember when Kibaki came into power, after the 24 years of Moi regime, they said, we have inherited empty coffers. Empty coffers, we just want to do good fiscal management and do our things right. And they started doing things right. They were not out there telling people, we are doing this, doing that.
No.
People were feeling what they are doing. So it is not, this is, I call it a PR government. Because from the time they started, they just kept saying, we are doing this, we are doing. But people are complaining. A year down the line, people are still complaining. But you see them coming and trying to defend things. When you're doing a good thing, why should it take you an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to tell people that it's a good thing? People should be the one telling you, you are doing a good thing, like Kibaki did. When Kibaki came into power, Kibaki just went into working, let people work, and made sure that things were happening. And if you messed up, you would carry your cross.
22 months later, has it been a disappointment?
In my assessment, 15% has been done right, 85% wrong. Wrong throughout.
And then the climax was yesterday, the interview with 3 of our top journalists. I'm sure you watched it.
I watched the interview. Actually, a lot of my people, even my family members, sometimes say, we don't want to see this guy on TV, whatever. I said, no, we need to watch it. To me, as a lawyer, I always like even listening to the devil.
What does the devil sound like?
The devil is the one who everybody frowns upon, the one who nobody wants to hear about or see.
Yeah.
But for me, I said, no, I want to listen. And I was expecting quite a lot from. But what I saw was a total disappointment. Total disappointment. First of all, it was wrong to have called for that interview. 2, the interview was for him to explain things which were not in the interview. Because None of the questions. This is where you find an exam which has been brought, and a student who does not, who gives his own questions and even answers them wrongly. that is what happened yesterday. Because here we were seeing, you're being asked this question, and you are explaining a different thing. And then when he's prompted to answer this question, then he answers what he had started, even in the wrong way. So it's a total failure. It was a total failure. When he comes out like that, then people, actually the citizens say he has no advisors. There's no advice whatsoever. His advisors failed him. He failed himself. He ought not to have come out. According to me, he ought not to have come out to say anything. Actually, ought not to say anything at this particular time.
What has it that he has advisors, but he advises his advisors on how to advise him?
I think maybe that may be the true position.
He advises
his advisors.
He keeps his advisors just to hear what they are saying. Not for them to advise him. And then he advises them how he ought to be advised and chooses what to do when he wants to do it without any regard to any advice is supposed to be given. But I don't know. I don't think these are people who are advising him. I think these are people who are his friends.
Running for presidency, Ali bites more than he can chew.
But he talked at the time. He talked the talk. Remember?
Yeah.
Ali ongea sana.
Actually, he made people believe that
he's the Messiah.
He's the Messiah. Actually, I think it is akin to what we see in our religious circles.
Yeah.
Those who come and say, I'm going to take you to heaven. The GenZs who are telling you, don't even eat. We are going to heaven.
And see Jesus.
And see Jesus.
Yeah.
Tell you your treasures are not here.
Yeah.
They are somewhere.
Yes.
But then they are amassing treasures here.
Right.
And want to live like... But they are telling you, no. You remember some time back, there was even a university town who refused to take his children to hospital. He was arrested.
Yeah.
They said this is a bento case because he's supposed to be educated.
Yeah.
But then that is what I now equate with our government now.
A lot of false hope.
Do you know, it's giving you, somebody giving you so much hope. You know, it is like seeing a very nice, beautiful girl in a club in the night.
Yeah.
Where there are lights and different private things and what have you. So then you say,
wake up in the morning.
Oh, you go and you say, I have gotten an angel. Then you wake up in the morning and you want to, what happened to me?
We've seen him as a cabinet secretary, as a member of parliament. Now he's having different dockets, education, agriculture. And as in I can't remember because I was quite young. And are you seeing a different person as president compared to when he was actually head of some ministries?
Actually, to me, our president should be a campaigner and a PR person, not a leader. Reason I'm saying this is that there are certain things as a leader you cannot say. Because actually, you saw what the clips he was being given as to what you said, what you're doing. And then he kept asking, why don't you play the ones which I said which I've done? And that's what I tell you. It is you have to struggle to get that 15% out of the 100 because 85% of it is gone. It's wrong. It is so he has gone. But you see how he came up. Because me, I've been long enough to whatever. I've been long enough to see all these things. When he came into politics, he started rabble-rousing from beginning. He took over from Chesire, and you know how he did it. It was from YK 92, and that's just shortly after we left the university, and things like that. And he went on with that abrasiveness. He's a good person who can rabble-rouse things from outside. But I don't think that we needed to have him. He mounted a very good campaign. That I give. He mounted a very good campaign and he made sure people believed him. And he can make sure that is able to advance certain things. The most unfortunate thing is that as a leader, he thinks that that can be a continuation of this.
If you were to give him some advice, Tom, right now, even though he doesn't take advice, but if you were to advise him to advise himself,
In case he's listening.
yeah, in case, what's one thing you would tell him?
I want the president to understand the difference between the rule of law and the rule by law. There's a big difference between the rule of law and the rule by law.
Break it down for us.
The rule of law is where you rule in accordance with the law. But the rule by law is where you try to rule and put the law within the rulership. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, he was asked about abductions, and he talked about arrest. The very incident of Alfred Keter, he was asked, you had the children and the wife crying.
Yeah.
Does it even bother you? And he did not want to. He said he was arrested. Police standing orders have a way of summoning people. You're summoned, and if you don't abide by the summons, they can now, even the DCI have a very vibrant. On Friday we were at the DCI we went to see the deputy DCI, Mr. Onyango, and they have very, very strict way of dealing with things. If they want you, they will give you a summons, and it's signed by an inspector. There is even a police format in the police act. There is, in the standing orders, there is a form, and you're told you are required in this place. They even publicize it. They have now the best PR, the social media. You are required on this day at this particular time. If you don't appear, then now they come for you. But is that what happened? That's not what happened. So it is not an arrest. That was an abduction.
Presence of the military on the streets. That decision by C.S. Douala, remember in the beginning?
Actually, that is the worst thing I have ever seen. The first Gazette notice was given under Article B. And when it was given under Article B, they talk of in case of emergencies and disasters. And emergencies and disasters are things which are known, common sense. These are emergency is defined in the Constitution. What is an emergency? And the president can say, we have a state of emergency. Disaster, things like flood, things like what happened in Maimahiu, and where you can say there has been a disaster, the president has declared a disaster or an emergency under Article 58, and then they now use the relevant article, and every decision made by the president must be in writing under the Constitution. And once that is made, and it requires urgent action, then the military can be sent to go and help the police in those kind of situations under Article 241 3B. Then they report to Parliament. They do that to arrest the emergency, to arrest the disaster, and report to Parliament, because there'll be no time to go through the motions of going to Parliament. But when it is unrest and insecurity, it is something which is building up. It is not something which has just happened. Like in that. That is where they must go first to Parliament and say, we are seeing insecurity building up. We are seeing unrest building up. Can you authorize us now, Parliament, to now deploy the military? So those are two very distinct areas on which you can deploy. But they just jumble themselves up. They try to go through that. And then, do you know, the irony is, here is a situation where you gazette that you have gone under subparagraph B, but then again, you have another motion in Parliament seeking approval under paragraph C. It's a confused thing.
Which took only 30 minutes.
Exactly. 30 minutes.
30
How?
minutes.
And you see, that motion has to come with a report saying this thing started this way, it has built to this much, and we think it is going to overwhelm the police, allow us now to deploy the military. But not just, it's not that way. This was not a disaster. It was not an emergency, which is defined under the Constitution. And I was very sad when I had another lawyer trying to define emergency from the Black's Law Dictionary or from the other dictionary. When a term is used in the Constitution, you check for the constitutional meaning within that Constitution. That is what happens. Because there are certain things which are not just, they may be words which may be general. If they are not in any statute, then you can now look for dictionary interpretation. But if they are words which are defined in the same constitution which you are using, and they're trying to use constitutional powers, then that is wrong. So ideally, that distinction between the two, and that is why even, because I am commenting on this because I know there are two cases going on. One on the use of paragraph B, and the other one on the use of paragraph C. Paragraph B is the one which has been initiated by the Law Society, which was determined, and now you see, we again said, the judge agreed that the Gazette notice ought to have had parameters, time frame, terms of reference, all those other things, and allowed them 2 days to do that. Now the 2 days, they have now given blanket parameter, blanket time frame, blanket everything. Now, the one for Otiende Amolo, which is on paragraph C, on the motion which was rushed for 30 minutes and passed, also has its own parameters. When you go for approval, what are the requirements that you have to give to Parliament so as to approve? Were they given? In those 30 minutes, were they given? A special sitting was convened. I'm not a member of Parliament, but I'm getting this from the facts which are in those two petitions. Before even the WhatsApp goes that there's a special session, people are running. In 30 minutes, by the time you arrive, it has already been passed and it's gone. Oh, is that how we do things? That is where I said the rule of law and the rule by law. We are not that distinction. Imeshinda hawa watu kabisa. Yeah, imewashinda kabisa.
Looks like extrajudicial killings are back.
Actually, what even again, the government, and unfortunately, I usually don't like, I respect leadership, and I respect the president. When he talked about there will be no extrajudicial killings, no abductions, no. You know, when you pump bullets into an armed person, 12 bullets, that is extrajudicial killing. Because you have already determined this guy, this person, and more so an infant.
Tom, you have GenZs in your household.
Yes.
Do you think GenZs can sustain what they're doing right now?
Let me tell you, these children or these youths are committed. A lot of them, they are graduates who have no jobs. They are people who have done technical, they've taken people to technical institutions. They have no jobs. And what do they have to carry? The only asset they have is their lives, which they walk with. They are not concerned with what is behind there. And since you asked me what the GenZs can be able to do, I can tell you that this thing, if not checked, can go way beyond. And no amount of abductions,
And intimidation,
killings. Actually, the killings and the abductions and what people see and the extrajudicial killings and the failure to even take these people to court is what is going to fuel this thing, and is going to make it even worse than what they think. Yeah.
Bottom line, Zakayo atashuka.
He must. Actually, to me, if he doesn't, then I think he reads the Bible. And there are so many. I also read the Bible a lot. There are so many kings who came down, and because of the power of the people. The minute you see a population which is dissatisfied, you must just think, and that's where I don't know whether the advisors and the chest thumping which we are seeing in Kenya Kwanza and with the numbers is very, very absurd. And the most unfortunate thing, and I drafted the pleadings on the issue of the statement he made about rejecting the finance bill and the memorandum he gave back to Parliament. Delete everything. You know, that's not a memorandum as envisaged under Article 115. That's not the memorandum envisaged under Article 115. And therefore, the operation of the law under Article 115 will happen, and that bill will become an act of Parliament after 14 days. So this gimmick of, I have rejected it, I've just told them to go back and withdraw. Parliament itself has become functus officio. They cannot withdraw unless they are addressing specific issues in a memorandum of rejection sent to them by the president. And they return it. And they have not obligated to abide by it. They may consider, they may not consider, but whether they consider, they do not consider, and that time frame lapses, the issue becomes law. And that's why you've seen Otiende Amolo has brought in a motion that because this thing will automatically become law, what we should be thinking about is a bill to repeal it. Not to say we will withdraw. How will you withdraw what you have? It is like a judge who has made a judgment, and then people have made noise. The only process is to go on appeal or to the Supreme Court. But he cannot say, we can recall the judgment, and because you become functus officio. Yeah. You cannot. Unless somebody comes with an application for review to enable you reconsider. And that's in legal parameters, what the president has done is to take this thing back to the Parliament under what quote unquote the judicial that review these areas. And you know, review is not an appeal. An appeal is where you set aside everything, and which can only be done by a higher court. Review is check this was not done rightly, review it. But that one is not what he has done. He has said delete everything. That cannot happen. So this thing will become law. And that is why what they should have been thinking is not withdrawing it, but taking it back, come up with a motion or a bill to repeal it, and then go back to the drawing table and start afresh.